Hello and welcome to episode 6 of Fleet Meet, this video series that's designed to compare and contrast fleet trends that are occurring in the European market with those in the US. My name is Mike Antich. I'm editor of Automotive Fleet, and I'll be representing the North American perspective.
My name is Hans Damen, managing partner for Fleet360, and I represent Europe.
One of the big topics among North American fleet managers who also have fleet responsibilities in the European market has been this pricing volatility. North American fleet managers, we're not strangers to price changes, but what's really caught the attention of a lot of North American fleet managers is the number of price increases from the time a vehicle is ordered to the time that it's delivered. I've heard that there could be as many as 4 different price increases.
Well, some of the manufacturers actually starting by the end of last year and beginning of this year with the various, crises that we have run into in Europe, they have increased pricing almost on a monthly basis. And meaning that if delivery times, which are already extended by months at the moment, if deliveries are being promised at all, it could end up indeed having 4 or 5 price increases before the vehicles being delivered, and these are substantial increases. This is not just a few €100. This is like thousands of euros that cars have gone up in the price range between 20 and 25,000 euros. So a 10% increase has been something that we have seen before. And as you said, for some of the US fleet managers that are not on the ground with this topic all the time, this can be a major shock.
Yeah, and they're struggling with how to budget for this. So some of them, not even knowing what the future price increases would be, are just budgeting a flat additional 20-25%, getting approval from their financial management to make those increases in order to avoid delays in the delivery process.
Yeah, true. And the challenge here is, because most vehicles are being used on the basis of a full operational lease, typically a price increase is also partially absorbed by residual values. But the leasing companies now say, but hold on, these price increases, they might go down again. And then I might be stuck with a very expensive vehicle in 3-4 years from now. And so therefore, I'm not budgeting the same amount of increase to the residual value as the list price value has increased as well. So it is indeed a challenge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we haven't been experiencing the multiple price increases in North America, but there are issues. The biggest issue is in terms of price protection. In many cases, a vehicle may be ordered in a specific model year, and then towards the end of that model year, that vehicle order is canceled, moved into the next year. And where the difficulty occurs is that next year or next model year that order has been moved to may have a price increase, even though I had ordered it earlier, no fault of mine, at that earlier price. That's what I was budgeted for. Now I'm hit with a price increase, and some fleet managers are saying it's kind of unfair. I mean, there should be some sort of pricing protection for a change that I, as the fleet manager, didn't make.
So when we talk about product and product availability, we've seen in Europe, this contraction of smaller vehicles. Manufacturers are reconsidering their position on whether or not to continue to produce smaller vehicles for various reasons. Production cost, also the mandatory safety equipment, etc., that have a hefty price impact on the overall product. But are you experiencing anything like that in the US? Because I do understand you don't have the small size vehicles we have over here, but are manufacturers in the US also repositioning their product line?
In some cases, yes. There's always been kind of a limitation in the number of models that are available in the van market. In particular, the compact market for vans, which is what we're hearing more now. I mean, Nissan had exited the market. They're really not offering any sort of vans. Stellantis exited the small van market by discontinuing the ProMaster City van. And now there's a discussion about others, and none of this is really substantiated. Manufacturers haven't mentioned it, but it's in the news. is being picked up by a number of different publications about the potential discontinuation of other major compact vans. And that's going to pose an issue for fleet managers. And the key issue is that many of those vans are ideally suited by their size for the fleet application that fleet manager is buying them for. But what's going to end up happening is, with the fewer number of compact vans that are out there, it's going to be forcing fleets to buy bigger vans. So that's increasing their acquisition costs. It's also going to be increasing their operating costs, since these bigger vans have lower fuel economy and higher fuel consumption than one of these compact vans.
And predominantly, we see a lot of small vans running around in cities over here because of, the space to move around and to park your car and so on.
But, there are limitations to that. And perhaps this might be a good opportunity here, Hans, to bring up Michael Biegers, the Global Fleet Manager for the Catholic Relief Services Organization, on his take on EV availability outside of North America. You operate an international fleet in a lot of less developed areas. Electrification is the transition for the industry. Will that transition occur in these less developed areas, and what are the obstacles?
Oh, absolutely it'll occur. It is occurring right now. We've just purchased our first EV, and several more are planned. It's a slower process, and it's going to be difficult for many of our work vehicles. So we use Toyota Land Cruiser quite a bit, right? But there are no good EV options in vehicles that are that size, and where we use them, the electric availability is not really good for charging. So what we've done is we've begun to introduce EVs in our office locations in the cities where they're centrally garaged and where we can charge them.
Right. I think that's going to be the trick. So it's true in North America, the number of EVs is increasing, and it will probably continue to increase each subsequent year. But what's starting to emerge now with more EVs that are on the road today is the inadequacy in public recharging infrastructure. And we're hearing more and more complaints from users saying that they're encountering recharging units that just don't work, or they're charging at a much lower speed than they should be.
No, true. And that's why also companies develop very different speeds in how quickly they want to implement EVs. Because if you're from runner, you had the big tax breaks that they were giving to you at the start of those programs. But right now, most countries, those tax breaks are being reduced or even fully taken away. And then you're on your own to make their business case for the EV vehicle, including, having proper charging infrastructure. And that's why we also talked to David Hayward back in Florida
with ABM
what he sees in the future. And so let's listen to him for a moment.
So congratulations on your new position at ABM. I'm curious, what is ABM's electrification strategy? Where is that going?
So it's very much in its infancy. We announced earlier this year a strategy of 2040. Our fleet will be fully electric by 2040. We have 11 e-transits on order, which is exciting, and we're seeking out different places to deploy them. It's going to be a slow process, though. One of the issues we have is we need to gather the data to understand where electric vehicles will work in today's environment with today's infrastructure. Obviously, we see infrastructure improving over the years, so we felt that it was a sweet spot, shall we say, at 2040 for full electrification. But we have stepwise goals along the way. So we would.
How large is your fleet?
Our fleet is almost 6,000 vehicles.
Okay, and what percentage of that would be electrified?
Yes. So the mini
goal is
the goals will be 100% by 2040, but stepwise goals along the way.
So as David said, their aim is to electrify their fleet by 2040, and although those sound like a very far-fetched horizon, they took a very realistic goal what they think is achievable based on product availability, but also infrastructure availability and so on. So there's pros and cons that people need to consider, and it's it's a very complex situation and needs careful deliberation to make the right choices there.
Yeah, my feeling is the problem in this transition is not with the asset itself. I mean, there's some phenomenal electric vehicles that are on the road, and they're only going to get better as with each subsequent model year. The issue and the Achilles heel is we got to get the infrastructure right. And that's the biggest issue, because a lot of areas, especially, with us taking a global perspective with this video series, there are a lot of areas that just do not have the infrastructure there, which de facto precludes, EVs coming in. Grids may not be sufficient to account for any sort of large number of recharging events that are going on. And plus also some areas, vandalism and theft is very prominent. And I know in talking with fleet managers in other regions of the world, they say, public charging stations within 30 days, most likely are going to be stripped of any sort of value there that people or thieves can use to recycle or to sell. And it eliminates the availability for EV customers. So that's an issue that needs to be addressed as time goes on.
I agree, and I'm afraid, with changing climate and droughts, being identified in many areas where people say, please don't host the garden or only do it at night. We will even come to a situation where we will be publicly advised not to charge a car that night because we might, kill the whole system by overloading the grid. So let's keep fingers crossed and hope we can find solutions for this. But right now,
that's happening today. Right now, where I live in California. We're going through a major drought, and just yesterday we received a notification from the state asking that those EV drivers refrain from charging their vehicles in the evenings, which would be a peak hour usage, and because it could strain the grid and cause brownouts or blackouts in worst case situations. So even with a small universe of EVs that are currently in the marketplace, that is still putting enough of a strain on the existing grid that could, impact power availability for other users. So infrastructure is the key thing, and that needs to be addressed. But and it is being addressed, but they have to be in lockstep. And I think the development of EV assets is far further along than what we're doing on the infrastructure side. And it's not meant as a criticism. It's just that's something that has to be done in parallel with the rollout of all of these EV vehicles that are going to be entering the marketplace. But with that, we've reached our allotted time, Hans, and would like to thank you and thank the viewers.
Many thanks, Mike. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thank you.